PurpleNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Well, I think Justin was just frustrated. Hey, we're all frustrated. When we don't win a game, we all get frustrated. We all have say things 10 minutes after the game that we wish we wouldn't have. But, every time I've talked to him, when he's been frustrated, he's I got you, coach, we're good. Let's go. And, in my opinion, he's just he just wants to win. And part of that is he wants to get the ball if he can. And, I don't think he's calling out anybody. That's not the type of person that he is. He's a guy that wants to go out and play and play his very best every single week.
And welcome into Purple Daily. That, of course, was Vikings coach Mike Zimmer trying to explain away Justin Jefferson's very interesting post-game comments after the Rams loss on Sunday. Purple Daily brought to you by our friends at Surly Brewing Company and also, of course, TCL TV. Enjoy more with TCL. It's Zolgad. As you can see, no Mackey today, no Declan Goff. AJ Fredrickson in for our guy Goff, executive producing. But you know who we got, ladies and gentlemen? That's right. It's Tuesday. We got the Rhino, Alex Boone. Doesn't take time off, shows up for every game, no excuses. Rhino, welcome in, man.
It's great to be here, dude.
You and me and AJ.
I know. I don't even think Phil and Declan understand what they just did. Like when Declan last night was like, "Hey, I'm not going to be on there," and Phil's not going to be there either. I was like, "Wow, this pot is about to get stirred, lit on fire. Maybe a piss taken on it, lit on fire. Oh, like this is going to be so much fun because there's going to be so many people called out today. Oh, everywhere. I mean, everybody needs to get called out.
And you know what? I ain't going to stop you. I'm not your boss.
I love you.
I'm just on the show with you.
So I love you.
So like we are, you're the guard. I'm the tackle.
Yeah.
Like we're bros here, man. So
you got to listen to me. I'm like the center and you're the guard. That's
Exactly. So you're making the call.
I'm making all the mic declarations today, Brody. You better watch out.
I'm going to do what you tell me. I want to start with what Zimmer just said, but I actually want to start with Jefferson's post-game comments on Sunday, which I'm sure you've seen by now, sort of questioning the Vikings' approach in the red zone. But more importantly than that, in a very measured way. And I think Justin Jefferson's a very smart kid. Like he's 22, but I think he's I think he is a very well-reasoned young man. So he's not like fly off the handle receiver dude. But when he mentioned in his post game that when he showed up to the locker room on Sunday with a team that right then was in the playoffs, and I know it's the 7th seed, but they were still there, and what essentially was a must-win game, that there was a lack of energy, there was a lethargic feeling that he got. If you're a player on that team, and you showed up, Booney, and saw that, what's going through your head, especially with a guy like you who played in a Super Bowl or Jefferson who played in a national championship game? So I would argue that guys like you know what winning looks like.
Yeah. I think that the most important thing is like, when you talk about a guy like Justin Jefferson, number one, you can tell he's an emotional player. I was an extremely emotional player. I wasn't afraid to let people know how I felt. And I felt like it was always important to keep the dialogue like that open. And when you would tell people the truth, it wasn't such like a slashing way as much as it was a criticizing way. Like, hey, man, like if I ever went into a game and didn't feel like we were hyped, because I was the hype man. And it was like my job to make sure everybody was ready to go. And if there was guys that were down, it was kind of like, hey, what the hell's going on with you? What's wrong with you right now? You know, like there was a couple of times that guys would take naps before the game and I would go over and nudge them and be like, seriously, what the fuck are you doing right now? They'd be like, dude, I'm tired. You tired before a game? Like, can you be for real about this? And when you talk about that, going into a must-win game, I felt the energy of the team was super flat. You could tell the minute the game started. I think the first drive was a 3-and-out, and you were like, nope, just don't have it today. Just didn't want to bring it today. And it was like, to me, everyone talks about this dominant performance from Aaron Donald, but I didn't feel like it was that dominant. And I don't know why, though. Like, I don't know why, if it was because I felt like the Vikings more so hurt themselves and didn't bring the fight to the Vikings, because like it wasn't like Aaron Donald was doing things all day that were world beater. It wasn't like he was doing the 1-2 and the shifting of the hands and all of a sudden you didn't see him and there's the flash. Like it was kind of like he just methodically went through the motion and then ended up getting a sack off an extended play. Like all these things I'm watching, and I'm like, is someone going to step up? Do they not realize that they're really on the cusp of falling out of the playoffs? Like, you're so close to getting where you want. The beginning of the season, everyone says just get to the playoffs. Doesn't matter what spot you are. Home field advantage. You think I care where I play? I don't care if we're at home. I'd rather be on the road, because when you're on the road in the playoffs, that's when you get that mentality of hatred. That's when you go into like the Saints Superdome and you're like, nope, I don't want to be here right now. No, yeah, I do. I for sure do. Like the voodoo doctor going crazy in the corner, and you're like, yeah, I love it. I'm loving it. The lights cut out. You're like, we might not make it out of here, but that's okay with me, because this is what life is all about. Mm-hmm. And you talk about having that one moment. And here's a player, and you said it, Judd. He is so much wiser than people know. Like, he makes these comments, and I'm like, wow, this kid. Ooh, he gets it. He's like, to call your team out for having a lack of energy before a must-win game. You know you're going to take blowback. You know the guys in that locker room are going to look at you like, how dare you do that to us? Like, how dare you let the media now pin our lack of effort on this game? Instead, it could have just been like, oh, they didn't capitalize on opportunities of turnovers, or they didn't, do. But now, now their energy was down. Like, here we start picking, you know what I'm saying? Like, but to have the wherewithal and the balls to actually say that shows me how veteran you are, because that is something a veteran be like, hey, man, after the game, a real veteran would have been like, you guys know why we lost that game. We didn't bring the fight to them, and we had no business being on that field today. After Anthony Barr almost single-handedly saved this game for us, we went out and still lost. Like, there'd have been a lot of words.
Mm-hmm. And what Mike is trying to spin to is BS. What a player says during the access period, right? Or when Jefferson said what he said, Boone, that's the truth.
Right.
So like, that's not well, he was just hot. Right. No, you want to calm him down. You as the coach. And I mean, I went in enough locker rooms post game to hear that the coach had coached you guys up on what he wanted you to say. Here's the message to the media. Like, we can be PO'd and we'll talk about it. And I'm mad, but when they come in, here's what everyone should say. And to sell this nonsense of, well, Justin was upset. We're all upset. Yeah, but somebody said what they meant.
Right.
God bless them for that.
I agree with you. And I think the more that you run from that, the more you become a less emotional, a less chemistry team, because everyone's kind of always hiding their feelings and running from them. And it wasn't so much the coaches. I think it was the media people that were just like, hey, we're cool, right? Like, after a loss, they'd come over and be like, hey, we're good, right? And you'd be like, no, I'm not good. And they'd be like, you need to get good, because if you say something stupid, this whole locker room explodes. And you're like, there's a lot to say, and I know I'm going to get it, and it's none of my business, but I'm still the one left holding the bill, because technically the O-line is always the one left holding, like, who is he going to call out? Is it the quarterback? Is it the coach? Is it the running back, the receivers? Oh, it's going to be a great – and you're like, dude, I just want to get dressed and get the hell out of here. They're like, the media is so smart. They give you 10 minutes. And I'll tell you what, you learn how to shower real quick, because if you don't beat that 10 minutes, Judd, I could be running to the door with my backpack. I don't think so. And like, all of a sudden, one microphone hits you in the head. And you're like, oh my God, what happened? Next thing you know, there's 20 cameras. And it's like, Boone, you lost.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I just wanted to go home.
And you told the truth.
Right. And because I couldn't lie.
Like, we knew that you would be hot, but see, you were good because you were pissed, but measured enough to make sense.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, some guys, it's just like, oh my God, the floodgates, which is also
I hear
great.
It now.
But like, you would be mad and you would say stuff, but it was also like, oh, okay, this makes sense, which makes a great quote.
Right.
But I thought what Jefferson did, and I thought the way he said it was perfect.
Oh, yeah,
and I thought to myself, here is I mean, among the indictments of this team, here's a 22-year-old young man basically spitting truths, and doing it in a reasoned way, not like, not like going off, not like I should have got the damn ball. What's going on?
Right.
Everything he said to me was like, yes, this is why. I mean, Boone, I keep coming back to this. This team doesn't work. Like, we can argue about who should work, and I'm a Cousins fan and you're not, or vice versa.
Right.
This group doesn't work together. And good for Jefferson for basically saying we showed up without the requisite intensity.
Yeah. And like I said, to do that with all the guys on your team that have so many more years than you, or
Yes.
more games in the NFL and more experience, like, I'm not kidding. There would have been a lot. I'm sure there are a lot of looks thrown his way. Like, I hope you weren't talking about me. And that's the one thing is, like, everyone will deny that, a lack of effort, but it's the hardest thing to deny, because the minute you turn on the film, it's like, well, where's the effort?
Yep.
Where is it?
Yep.
If you're claiming you're so, like, I mean, there had to be games that you're like this last game where when you're down and you just don't feel like it's in you, you got to do something to create a spark. You got to be on the sidelines making guys laugh. You got to be talking to coaches. You got to, like, bring everybody together to be like, look how close we are. Defense is keeping us in this game. And at the same time, we just not capitalizing. Like, we just need that extra hump. And maybe that's why people were saying it was so dominant, because there were a couple run plays where Aaron Donald showed up for tackle for losses, and it was like at the perfect time. Like, he would go backside on a B, and all of a sudden Darisaw would fall down, and, you know, Aaron Donald's hips are like, I mean, they're incredibly stupid fast. So he's not going to lose ground and gain ground. He's just going to continue to go at the running back. And there's a couple times he brought him down. One of them was like by the goal line, which ended up like hurting him later they ended up kicking a field goal. But, you know, when you talk about that, you don't understand how crucial it is to play against a guy like this who is lulling you to sleep the entire day. There's all these pass rushes. And I was thinking about this today because I played Aaron when Aaron was young. There was no $200 million. There was, you need to earn the 200. So I played Aaron when Aaron was really Aaron, and I was the right guard, and he only played on the right side, and we played him twice a year. There was no escaping it. There was no like, hey man, we got you, bro. Because on the other side was Robert Quinn. And then it was Michael Brockers. And so it was like, hey, you think you got problems? The left side's really got problems, and we're sliding to our left tackle more than we are our right guard. So it was like, you better figure it out. So you're looking at this, and I'm like, man, this dude doesn't even rush anymore. He just comes off the ball half the time and doesn't even do anything. I'm like, you're really complaining about this guy right now? Like, half the time that sack was an extended play. Kirk's trying to bail out. I got to make something happen. All of a sudden, Aaron is like, you know what? If I have to, I have to. Okay, I guess I'll go. Like, I'm like, dude, how? But when you get into these crucial situations and he ends up showing up for a tackle for loss, it's because you fell asleep on him. And you were like, oh, this guy could be had $200 million. He's not worth a dime. And then all of a sudden you're flat on your face and he's like, what'd you say about me? Dude, I'm not even trying right now, bro. I'm not even trying and this is happening.
What the hell makes him that good though? Like this, because he's not like a huge man.
No, he's
but
not.
My God, is he fast? And I put the binoculars on him quite a bit, and just watching him move is a delight.
Oh, he like when guys would ask me when I would play people, they'd be like, hey, I gotta play Aaron week 12. What do you think? I'd be like, listen, dude. There's one thing you got to know about Aaron is anytime he's on the field, he's there with a purpose. If I'm in my stance, it's with a purpose. If I'm coming out of my stance, it's with a purpose. There is no like lag. There is no slow motion. Everything is fast and it's like efficient and it's like perfectly skilled. And you're like, there was times, and Judd, people laugh when I say this, but I don't laugh. I would blink and he was gone. I didn't know where he went. I couldn't tell you which way he went. I'd be setting as fast as I could, as hard as I could. I'd be staring right at him. I'd blink, and all of a sudden he was gone. It was like, where'd he go? And like, he'd get so low to the ground, or he'd go out to wide, or he'd come into the center. And it was just like he knew so much about the game, and his leverage was so good. He's never not moving forward. And that's another thing. Like, he's always moving towards the ball, always. But now it seems like there's times where he doesn't have to do anything and people still take 3 guys to block him. And it's like, you've won. Technically, Aaron, you've won because you're not doing anything, and 3 guys on this offense are worried about you right now.
Mm-hmm. He, the one thing I'll say that I saw, and I mean, it's a gift, but he's so fast and strong that it looked like he would literally take the lineman as if he was a cone and move the cone aside and just be gone. So like there was no engagement. Like there was not the traditional, I'm coming at you, you block me, I try and beat you. Right. It was literally hut, snap, bang, I move you, I'm gone.
Yeah, and it never fails, because I think his biggest thing is like, as an offensive lineman, our whole point is to stop your trajectory. We're here to stop your entire rush so that if you stop your feet, eventually it's going to take you too long to get going again, that the play's just dead. But with him, it's kind of like, I'm not even trying to grab you. I'm just trying to knock you off your course. And my whole goal is to make sure you don't go inside. So you would always super underset him, but with reason, because if you underset him too much, Judd, he's just going to turn that corner right now. Like there's no stopping that. So it was like, It was such a happy medium of like being fast and slow, and like he'd play games with you, and like there'd be times, and there was this one stance, and I mean, you could tell I'm a nerd because I'm talking about this guy's stance, but he looked like he was just gonna fly off the ball. And it was every time he would do this, I'd be like, oh my, I get super low to the ground. Like we were just doing the shuffle together. And all of a sudden at the last second, he would drop and I'd almost fall over because I didn't know what to do. And it was like, everything about him was so effective in playing him. And you always had to be like, man, I got to do something against Aaron. Oh my God. Here we go. Because like he was just so good at grabbing the first guy and throwing him, and he'll take the block on, but then the linebacker's coming free, and you're just like, there's just no beating this guy. And I mean, there's been times as of lately, he's obviously gotten older and things have gotten broken on him. But when he started to where he is now, he's still playing at an elite level.
On the Vikings. So to go back to the post-game comments by JJ and that game. And we could certainly talk about the fact that Stafford didn't have a good game. They took advantage, but not nearly enough. But I want to talk about something that the analytics and statistics people hate, but I contend is a big part of football and the sport that you now coach, hockey. And that's chemistry. And that's chemistry. I want to talk about that because I feel like when you show up into a locker room before a game where you are in a playoff spot and trying to sneak in, and you're not a great team, but you're potentially a playoff team, and it's flat. You can have talent, but I don't think this team, and I'm not talking about them as humans, okay? Like off the field, I have no idea. I don't know them at all. But I'm talking about chemistry as far as football players. I don't feel like this team enjoys each other, and I don't feel like they have any chemistry. And I think that's quite clear in watching them. That doesn't mean they don't have talent. They do have some talent.
Yeah.
But I don't, but you know, to go back to the 2017 run to the conference title game led by Case Keenum, that team was, I thought, not only talented, but incredibly galvanized and on the same page. I watched this team, and Alex, I don't see it. I don't see enjoyment. I see every game as its own. We got to do this again. Okay, let's go do it. And I'd be curious as a player to get your thoughts on if you agree and if what type of difference that makes, because it feels like every game is a chore. And I don't think in playing sports that can be the case and that team can be successful.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't think it's true. I'd never played on a team that we all didn't just care about each other just because you're going through the gauntlet together. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like behind the scenes. I think a lot of it is the fact that they do sometimes play like they're energyless, and you're like, man, it's just like we'll blame it on the lack of chemistry when really it's like, where's the fight in this team? Like somebody's got to step up and start throwing some punches soon. And I think a lot of it was left to Dalvin, and there were games where he picked it up. Like, look at the Pittsburgh game, 200 yards, like comes out and just destroys the team by himself. And that was what that was supposed to look like the whole year. And when it didn't, we were all kind of like, what's going on? And then not only that, but they were being stopped consistently on their own side of the field. And you're like, now really, what is going on right now? Like you lose to the Browns, and Baker Mayfield threw like 30 passes, completed 5 of them, and you still lost. Like, these are the things that when you look back, we expected this team to be so great. And this is really one of the biggest issues with sports and football and specifically pro sports is that you put these huge predictions on these teams based on the year before. But you're right. The tiniest little bump in the road can take you off trajectory so fast. And it's so hard to get the wheels back on the road. And you're like, by the time you get back on, 8 weeks have passed by and you're like, man, this is, is it even worth coming back anymore? And all of a sudden guys are falling by the wayside and you're trying to keep guys together. And I don't ever think there's like an issue that the offense hates the defense, because that would be clearly evident. Like we saw last week in Washington, Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen fighting. Yeah. Like sometimes brothers fight like that, but if an offense and a defense hated each other, you would see a ton of that. And you would just see more name calling and poking. So I don't think it's that. I think it's just the fact that the leadership of this team has either given up or that they've they have a lack of faith in what they're looking at. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a leader on the team, maybe somebody's like, hey, instead of trying to rally everyone else, I'm going to have to try to keep myself hyped. When as the leader, everyone's looking at you to be the guy to say, hey, man, we're going this way. Instead of like, hey, I don't know. Isn't he the boss? I thought he was. I'm not the boss. He's the boss, right? Like, you're like, suddenly guys you were looking at like, wait a minute. I thought you were the guy calling the shots. And he was like, not me. No, he was. He told me to do it. Go talk to him. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait. You weren't the guy making those decisions the whole time. Like, that's when you become, and then all of a sudden the team unravels and you're like, all of a sudden everything was kind of a facade and everybody goes their own way in the offseason. And it's sad because friendships that you thought you had were really just nothing. And you're like, oh, this is terrible.
Okay. That's perfectly put. That's perfectly put, because here's the weird thing. One, I don't think this team has quit. So like, I don't think they've quit on Mike, where it's just clear that they're cashed in. And that they've, I think you're right. I think it is this whole thing. And it might be the fact that this is the rare case, I guess, where the quarterback does not lead. And so you're looking for, I don't know, Harrison Smith or Barr or Cook. But that's what makes this team so weird. And that's why I feel like when I watch games, they're going to work. Yeah. They're not like enjoying of, oh man, magic carpet ride. Yeah, we're not great, but we're the 7th seed. So I think you put it perfectly. I think it is because I've seen teams quit.
Right.
This team is not quit. Like, this is not a bunch of just malcontent.
Oh, no.
But the gelling doesn't seem to work.
Right. And Mike would never let them quit. And we would never expect an NFL player to quit. But I think a lot of it, now that we're kind of talking it out, is that players that would normally become unleashed and can do whatever you want have now become these controlling factors on the team. Like, hey, we need you to be a leader now. And you're like, wait. That's not my job. I'm not a leader. I am the guy that comes out here and talks shit to everybody. And they're like, no. You need to be appropriate. You need to talk to people. You're like, okay, I guess so. And like, you're expecting so much more instead of, like you said, having a quarterback that can throw 400 yards and just go out and you can say, you know what, guys, go have fun. It's okay to make mistakes. That's another thing. Like, I feel like the minute a mistake is made, everybody's walking on eggshells around everybody. And they're like, you feel that too. I know you do, Judd. Everybody on the sidelines is quick to be like, oh, it's okay. High five each other. Just keep high fiving and it'll be like, you're like, dude, no, it's okay. Eat it. It's an interception. It happens. Move on.
Yep. Well, I don't think it's any mistake that since he threw the interception against the Niners on the first, I believe, offensive play of the second half in San Fran, Kirk has not been the same. And I will say this, Booney, I think that where one place, as much as they might not see eye to eye, I think one place where Zimmer and Cousins are very much the same is neither of them is really good when things go wrong.
Agreed.
And I mean, some guys are, right? Like you've seen guys, I bet, hey, no problem at all. Yeah, that's a terrible play, but who cares? Let's go have fun, right?
Yeah.
I don't sense that from the coach and quarterback, and those are probably two important people to turn the pressure or the heat down when things get heated.
Agreed. And I think the one thing is the biggest important thing is the calming factor on any storm. You know, like when something bad happens, the one guy that everyone looks to, like, hey, what are we going to do? And he's like, don't worry. Do I look worried? No, come on. Like, there was so many times in my career I could tell you, and I could tell you vividly against the Packers when Cap threw that pick six, the first play of the game in the playoffs, the wild card in Candlestick. I remember exactly where I was on the field. He threw it right over my left shoulder, and the dude ran it in 30 yards. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is going to be painful. And I turned around and Cap was like laughing about it. He was like, okay, it's fine. Good for you. He's like, here it comes. He ended up going for like 200 yards that game just on his own legs. And it's like, there's some guys that can shake things off and they can move on. And then there are other guys that the minute something bad happens, you're right. They're just like, they're super uptight. And then the other guy who's also controlling the team is super uptight. And then all of a sudden the OC who's scared for his job is uptight. And then the O-line who's already uptight is playing even more uptight. And then everyone's like, you know what? Well, I guess I wish we could play uptight. We'll hope to win the game. Maybe something good will happen. Instead of everyone just going, football is such a terrible game and it will play such mental tricks on you that if you just overcome the tiniest little things, like, you know what, whatever. We gave them the ball. We were going to punt it away anyways. They got good field position. We'll work off of it. We'll hold them to a field goal. Because then all of a sudden your defense holds them to a field goal and they come off the field and they're kind of like, you owe us one. And the offense is like inclined to feel like, hey, you know what? They're right. We owe them one. It's time for us to go out here and start busting it. And we got to start doing things. And that's when you start holding each other accountable. And that's when good things happen.
How can you play this game and not love adversity and things going wrong? Because I feel this game is based on those two things.
Yeah.
Like it's not based on threw another 62-yard bomb for a touchdown.
No.
It's so based on the imperfection that I don't understand how you can love this game unless you love basically looking at things that are adverse and saying, bring it on, screw it, let's go. I don't get why people would play this sport if they are quote unquote perfectionists.
I agree. I think that some people I think obviously football people have changed the opinions, but after being in the league and understanding how a real game is called, and then all of a sudden, like you would go in, like say to the quarterbacks meeting where it was like really intricate meeting where it was, this is what we want to run against this and this is why. And all of a sudden it was like, this is plan B. And if we think that they don't do this or if they stop this, then we're going to come back and hit them with this. And you start to understand like, well, I guess the whole point of the game is going to be we're going to come out and punch them in the mouth. And if they can take it, well, we're going to have to go to our next punch. And then we're going to have to go to our next punch until we find something that continuously gets us down the field. And then all of a sudden, maybe we can play action off of it or we can pass it. But if they keep stopping all of our plays, well, eventually we start running out of options. And then you go to 2 minute early and then the game's just over. You know what I'm saying? Like and the fun thing is sometimes when you do get into those really close games where it becomes a very big chess match and you see it, you feel the intensity. It's like a lot of these games that gets late in the season, late in the quarters, and all of a sudden you just feel in the game, oh, they're going to go cover 2. I just know it. Or like, oh, they're going to switch to 1. We're going to check out of this. We're going to get to this. This is our home run. Like I remember we played the Bears one time and we went to overtime. It was the first play of the game, or first play of overtime. And I remember they were like, listen, they've been checking the 1 the whole game. We're going to go for it. We're going to go for the home run the first play. And we went fake plant left and we went home run. And it was just, go. And like 75 yards. And it's like the chess match is so fun because you're like, this should work. There's no way this should fail. And the minute it worked, you're like, wow, all those years of paying attention finally paid off. Like I get why this works on so many different levels.
Right.
Not just because it's fun. Like I understand because the safety rotated down, all of a sudden the go just took off. Like it was like,
yes,
this is what makes it so fun. And when you talk about breaking all this down, man, it gets so intense.
Yes, exactly right. You know what works for me, Booney and
Tell me.
AJ? I'm going to tell you right now. A good old-fashioned Surly Furious IPA. That should be your play call. That should be your play call. I don't care if it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, any day of the week. If you want to make the right play call, pick up a Surly Furious IPA. All of the Surly Brewing products are fantastic. Furious happens to be my favorite, and it also describes, I think, how Justin Jefferson probably felt after that game on Sunday. What was your thought on his comments about the red zone and not being aggressive enough in the red zone?
I think a lot, and this goes back to that point of like, there were times where I thought they were driving down the field well, but then all of a sudden these error plays came out. Like there was one time that Kirk checked down, like for no reason, like it wasn't under pressure. He just threw it to like the sideline and there was like no
Madison pass.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it
pass.
and I remember thinking, why would he throw that?
Yep.
What are you doing?
There's nothing to be gained on that play.
Right. Like at some point, if you're going to be a leader, run the ball. Dude, I know, and I don't understand why these quarterbacks are afraid to run it. I don't care about your stupid stats because now you're looking at a season that technically is like in crumbles. Like you got to make a better effort for something like that. And I agree with them. And that's why I said when Justin Jefferson said what he said, there could be a lot of people that are like, hey, man, no question, you are one hell of a player and you have a lot of right to say things. But at the same time, maybe we don't drag the whole team through the forest fire. Maybe not.
Maybe
not. I don't know.
But I was just glad at least somebody said what we've all seen. Because it's like the frustrating thing is coaches, especially players too, but coaches especially, they think we'll fool them. You know, they just watch the entire game, but we'll fool them all. We'll tell them it's, Justin was frustrated. Yeah, he's frustrated. He also, if the Wilfs are smart, they also heard what Justin said and will add it to the file of why there might be a change. Because if I'm the Wilfs, look, the Diggs thing, unfortunate, actually worked out fine because they took Justin with the pick.
Right.
But the Diggs thing at the time, I sort of get, Mike wasn't going to be fired. Stephon wasn't happy Diggs had a point.
Right.
This one, though, there's no debate. Like what Justin Jefferson said, which, by the way, make no mistake, is the precipice of frustration, which is not good. This one to me signs the certificate that it's probably time to make a change, because again, it's a well-reasoned, thought out, really incriminating on two factors statement by a guy who clearly knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, and not only that, but one of your best playmakers to come through the league in a long time. I mean, this
Absolutely.
is one of the kids that you're not going to be like, well, oh, he's upset. Well, you can just go, and you're not going to let him go. I'm sorry, but at the same time, like when you talk about if you're going to ride the same train, and I think about the Wilfs a lot because I wonder a lot of these owners are going to have to start making decisions soon, really soon. And you have to wonder because some of these teams late in the season have kind of made some pushes towards maybe keeping their chances, and they've done some things. But when you talk about like the relationship, and we've talked about it on this show, that the guy who makes the most decisions and the guy who makes the most money, that relationship will never change. And I feel like you're locked into the guy who's got the money. And you can go out and find somebody that can make a million decisions. There's a million guys out there capable of running teams. There's so many coaches out there right now that are deserving to be on a team that actually know what they're going to do and build these relationships. So it's like at some point, if I'm the Wilfs, I have to think, do I want to go into another offseason with the media constantly poking around, figuring out what's the problem? Why were they 7-7? Like, like this last show on Sunday for our tailgate show on Sirius, Amber and we brought on Arif Hassan. And he was talking with us, and we were talking. And finally, she was like, listen, I'm looking at this roster. She was getting mad because she was like, there's so many talented players on this roster. Why are they 7-7? And he was kind of like, because they're a good team that people expect to be great. And it's because you do look at them on paper. But I feel like that's an indictment on the coaches. And it's kind of like, why can I look at this piece of paper and go, wow, that should beat a lot of teams on this roster, but it didn't. And it doesn't matter that you lost by a point or you lost by 100 points. Like Nobody's going to go back and be like, hey, we were 9-8, but it's okay because we only lost by one score each of those games. We were in there competitively. We were in there. Like nobody cares about that. At the end of the day, they want to know why the hell didn't it work? How can a roster filled with great players not be turning out W's? Instead, they're turning out L's. Like it's frustrating and maddening at the same time.
Because the coaching staff does not consistently manage to get the best from this team. And plus the thing too is, I think it's very fair to say that Mike's calling card, which was being an awesome defensive coach at one time, he's definitely lost at least part of the fastball. Yeah. Run defense is now bad.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I'm sorry, dude, but Dalvin Tomlinson and Michael Pierce played Sunday. Right. Eric Kendricks played. Like we can only say, well, the edge, Daniil's out and Griffin's out. Okay, yeah, that I get it. That hurts. But all this beef that you signed up front is playing, and you're still being gashed. And I got a tweet that said, well, it's all going to the outside. So did you watch the game? It's not all going to the outside. That's a ridiculous claim.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just a fact, I think, is that Mike is not the defensive coach. Things change. The league changes. And as you know, the key is how quickly can you adapt?
Right. Agreed. And not only that, but you talk about a Rams team that hasn't been able to really run the ball as of late. You would have thought, like, for me, it was like, man, I really see the Vikings just slamming the Rams right in the face. Like, your run game has just been pitiful. Your O-line's really not that good. But instead, it was the other way around. Like, Sony Michel was busting off these runs. It was like, is somebody going to hit this guy at some point? Like, yes. I'm confused. This offensive line is not supposed to be this good. Andre Whitworth's not in. Nate Bloom's not even in. Like, what the hell is going on right now? But it's like, when you talk about these teams that are starting to hit their stride and they're starting to hit this chemistry with each other, like, if you look at the Rams 3 weeks ago, I think the Vikings would have smacked the living hell out of them. Well, even without Dalvin Cook, because they were forcing too many issues. They were turning the ball over still. Like, they just weren't doing anything. But now they're kind of like, hey, we're okay. We can lean on our run game a little bit. Maybe Sony Michel's a little bit better than we thought. And it was like, nah, the Vikings are going to be fun. They're going to smack them right in the face. But it was like, what just happened at some point? And that's, to me, like another thing, like looking back at this, it's you're a defensive coach and this has become an offensive team. How's that possible? Like, you should co-inherently be the best at what you do. Like, And you're not. You're somewhere near the middle and maybe even a little bit lower than that. And that was your specialty. So it's like at some point then do we start throwing Rick in to say, where's the talent? Is the talent not good enough? Are we maybe missing talent? Are we not coaching these guys properly? Like that's why as players sometimes, when the coaches get real snippy with us, you're like, you really want to get snippy right now? I think your defense sucks. I think our offense is carrying our team. If anything, yes. I think you should be really calm about what you say next, because I can say things too, and I don't really care who hears it or what they say back.
And meanwhile, the GM is in the Wilf's office saying, I got him all the talent. Yeah, and the coach goes in and says, have you seen the lack of talent?
It's like a finger back.
And so it's like back and forth. And so the Wilfs are like, well, who should we fire? And I say, well, it's just time for a complete change. Got a question for you about the Packer game. But before I do, I want to tell the folks out there that Lewis Black's Off the Rails tour is coming to Mystic Lake Saturday, February 12th. Get ready for a hilarious night with the legendary comedian Lewis Black. Tickets are on sale now at the Mystic box office or online, mysticlake.com. That's mysticlake.com. Lewis Black, Saturday, February 12th. What is, Booney, what is your opinion now? Because this is such a weird team. I hesitate to say I have a feeling for it. Packers game on Sunday, because what's so weird is with the 7th seed now, the Vikings aren't dead. No. Like, they're closer, but they're not dead yet. What's your feeling?
I think their biggest problem is going to be, number one, and I'm going to say this, like, I think it was Udu just went on the COVID list or whatever.
Monday.
So it's like, okay, here we go again. Let's reshuffle a few cards against Kenny Clark, who's been, right? Like, we remember what happened last time. The first
third one, right? Akeem Hicks, Aaron Donald.
It's going to be interesting. But not only that, you talk about like a team that's still fighting for that first place team. Like, at first, I was kind of like, man, maybe the Packers go a little easy. And I'm like, no, they're still fighting for that home field, because only the first team this year gets that first home, which was smart, because that's how they kept it competitive the whole year. Had it still been the first two, the Packers would have been like, well, we're good either way. We're going to get first or second. We could probably chill up. But now it's like, no, only that one seed gets it. So it's like it's really them and Dallas kind of fighting to get that spot. And Dallas is going to give up. They just put a spanking on Washington. My God, I feel terrible for Taylor Heinicke. I still love that kid.
All right, let's wrap up here. AJ, if you can spin what's on the Rhinos' mind.
You know what's on my mind, dude?
What's on your mind?
I want to know who AJ's firing, because since AJ stepped into Declan's spot,
let's do it.
He's got to fire somebody. And if he doesn't, he's getting fired, and I'm firing somebody else. Mackey got fired already. Mackey's done. He's out of here. By the way, this might have been our best show ever, and he wasn't even.
I told you
I figured the issue.
There's no constraints here.
We've been talking for a while, right? Like, the show hasn't had a good flow. We figured out the flow issue.
Yeah, Declan and Mackey gone. The flow's working perfect. All right,
AJ,
it's your ball. Carry it, baby.
All right, so I'm gonna maybe a little more unconventional. I know Declan probably goes into coordinators or whatever. I'm gonna say like the Spirit team, whatever it would be, for entire US Bank Stadium, because I wasn't in attendance. Judd, I know you were there, and Boone, I'm sure you can probably look into this. For a team that's fighting to make the playoffs, you get through the Skull chant, you get through the pyrotechnics, and then kickoff is there. There's no excitement. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm like, where is the energy? Even Patrick Peterson after the game said they didn't have all the juice there, and they got to make their own. Somebody's got to make the juice, whether it's the energy coach or whatever it would be for the Vikings.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
He's firing the DJ.
God.
He's firing
I want the
game
DJ
ops.
out of there. Let's get DJ Boone on the wheels of steel, because
you don't want to know. These fifth graders listen to some of the craziest music before the game. There's a reason they won the championship, dude. I like that firing. That was interesting. I thought he was going to go. Dude, I thought he was going to say like Brandon Staley. There's a few guys he could have said. I was like, man, he's going to go after someone. He was like, no, the video ops guy and whoever does the damn music, because you suck. You know what? Good for you, AJ.
That building was, between the team and the fans, oh God. Nobody.
You know how bad it was? They threw 3 interceptions and they still won. That's impossible. Gee, that's almost impossible. Judd, you don't understand. There is a formula.
No, I know.
I used to look at it every year. They'd show you this formula.
Yep.
If you get 1 pick on the road, if you get 2,
yep.
But if you give them, like if you throw 3 or more, you have like a 99% chance of losing the game. It was like, man, what idiot would do that and still win? There you go. Like, that was incredible, especially a stadium that normally you hear about. People are like, I don't ever want to play there again. It's just something about it is eerie. It is loud. You feel like the crowd. And you know what it is? It's because it's built up and it's not built out. And so when it's built up, you feel like everything's always on top of you. But like when you're playing for the Vikings, you feel like you're part of the castle. But when you're not, I'm sure it feels like this is going to collapse on top of us. And it's incredible. So, yeah, I agree with you, dude. For them not to pull out a win, especially in a must-win game, for
all the things that went in their favor, like you said, they just keep finding new ways to lose. That should be the biggest lock of the year when you have Matthew Stafford throw 3 interceptions, almost 4.
Because dropped the damn one.
It was almost 5. It was almost 5.
It could have been 5.
He was terrible.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, man. It's just – and then when you talk about a team coming in here that probably like was throwing those picks, like this game is just, guys, it's not our day. And then all of a sudden they end up winning. Like, I don't know how, but we did it. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah. But you lost home games this year. Baker Mayfield, awful.
Oh.
Cooper Rush beat you. I had never heard of Cooper Rush before that game, basically. And then Stafford in I think one of the worst games I've seen him play, and this goes back to Lions.
Yeah,
was just you lost all 3 home games.
You know, I mean, the more you think about this, the more I start blaming administration, and I start blaming people because there must be a lot of outside noise heard on the inside. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be able to go into a stadium like this and have the fan base that you have, you should have players that don't know anything. Like, they just know that they're a great team. Like, that's another thing is I feel like the media's and they have it infiltrated hard in the locker rooms. And I feel like people hear more now than they ever did before. And there's a lot more poking around. But man, if I was a coach, I would keep that so wired tight. There's ways to be like, hey, we're not going to go in the locker room between noon and 1. Okay. That's just the way it is. I would be, you know what I'm saying? But I just don't feel like they do that enough at some places. And this is one of the places because you're right. The minute something bad happens on the field, it's like everybody tenses up and they all know the exact same thing is number 1, everyone's going to talk about it. Number 2, it's true. Like, it's just so much that you're like, they as a team, they feel like they read the newspaper a lot. Like, they kind of get what's going, and then they'll come out and like backhandedly say things to each other, or like all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I heard this in the media, but it's actually not true. And you're like, oh, so they are reading what's going. You know what I'm saying? Like, as if I was on this team, I would be like, there is zero media ability ever.
I would, if I was a coach now and I had a team, I would get everyone together at the start of training camp and say, we want to win a Super Bowl, right? That's our goal. Put the phones away, get off Twitter. I don't want you on Twitter. I don't want you on Facebook. I don't want any of that crap. But you got to do it to get the team together. Like, right. It can't be a rule of I'm telling you can't do it. It needs to be more of a, yeah, let's embrace this. But I would get my captains together and say, how do we go about getting everyone just for the season off of this crap? Because I think that's the noise. I don't think it's the newspaper. I don't think guys like search out StarTribune.com. I don't think guys know the Star Tribune's the paper here. Yeah. I think it's Twitter and ESPN and those outlets that people, Bashad Breeland responding to people on Twitter.
Yeah, that was
I don't need that, but I don't need even seeing that. You know?
Agreed. And there was a lot of times that I couldn't tell you how many times I would go upstairs and I would walk into like a scout's office. I'd be like, what are you doing? They'd be like, oh, I'm just looking at this kid's Twitter. Like, what a moron. I think we're going to draft him in the first round. He'd be like, dude, read this. I'd start reading and you'd be like, there's no way this is real. People just post the craziest things. They're like, they think we don't see this. I'm like, seriously, like, it's insane to me. And then all of a sudden it's like, why are these kids even on this? Why do people even have Twitter? Don't these people work? Don't you kids have school or training? Like, that's why, Judd, I don't understand how anybody has time to be on Twitter, because there is zero time in the world right now to be like, oh, how's it going? Oh, I'm so sad because they lost and blah, blah, blah. Like, number 1, who the hell wants to read that? Number 2, who cares? They lost. We don't need to talk about why they lost. They need to get better and move on.
Right. Well, and I personally love that stuff, but I'm part of the problem, not the solution.
Yeah, you are. You are definitely part of the problem.
See, I'm part of the problem.
I don't have a Twitter. I'm not allowed to yet.
But I'm the malcontent. I'm the guy that comes in and asks the guys, you know, aren't you upset about this? Aren't you? Because I find
Well,
that
here's a question for
sympathy
you.
works.
Because I have a
Sympathy
question.
works.
No, Jed, I have a question for you.
All right.
Do you get mad when they give you a political BS answer? Like when you know the answer is super BS? Because there's a few I've probably given you that you're probably like, that was such BS. Do you ever get like, I expected so much more from you?
It depends on the player, but ordinarily that's part of the game I'm used to.
Yeah.
So no. Now, if it comes from a player like you who I expected more from, I might get a little bit more like, well, that was a horse bleep response.
Walk away all mad.
But like with Kirk, but like with Kirk, do I ever expect the truth from
No,
Kirk?
no.
No, never.
That's
And I
sad as
never
that.
get mad. And look, I expect players and especially coaches to lie because they're
But why?
They're
Why are
lying
you
about
lying? I feel like you know why people respect Bill? Because he doesn't care what you think.
Yeah.
Like the more I was in that league, the more I saw why great coaches were great humans. Because they were just like, dude. And I had a coach tell me this one time. He sat me down. I was very young, and I couldn't believe he actually spent time with me. And he was talking to me, and he was like, listen, man, you care so much about what people think. And I'm here to tell you, nobody cares. You think that this dude over here thinks you suck. Who cares if he thinks you suck? He's like, Boo, do you really care if this guy thinks you suck? Right. I was like, yeah, I kind of do. He's like, who cares? That's his opinion. He's like, his opinion will never change. You can't change it based on anything. He was like, sometimes people are just going to hate you because people gave you things that they didn't give them. He's like, and that's when it hit me. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's so right. Like all these dudes are just following these people down. But Bill, he's just like, dude, no, he doesn't lie to anybody. What went wrong? Bill's like, what are you, stupid? You didn't see the game? Quarterback sucked. What the hell's wrong with you? Instead, you get these other like Matt Nagy's. Well, you know, I'm upset. We weren't good on third down. Right. I thought our O-line they were good. But instead of being like, we gave up 12 sacks. How are we supposed to move the ball after 12 sacks? It's just physically not possible. Like they hide behind all this junk. And then they wonder why nobody respects them, especially the players. And that's where I came in and I was like, listen, you're going to feed them a bunch of BS. We're going to feed you a bunch of BS. If you want to keep going round and round and round, because while you're feeding them the BS, you're still feeding me the same BS. You know what I'm saying? Instead of coming down hard on some of us. Like it was just like, dude, at some point, if you want to be respected, like Dan Campbell has been like fighting all year and he's still got his team fighting because he comes out and they're like, what went wrong? He's like, did you not see the game? We threw like 4 turnovers. We're not going to win a game like that. Team's like, he's not wrong. Clearly he's not wrong. Guy knows football. He knows how to play football. He's not afraid to tell us that's not football.
So what's Mike like? Because, I mean, he's a bristly old guy.
Mike's quiet. He's very quiet. Like I was thinking about this because you have to think a lot of teams are going to start making changes. So here comes this coach's carousel, right? And there's a team that was kind of floated out there. And I'm thinking like, if I thought polar opposite of Mike Zimmer, I would think a guy like Pete Carroll. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, what would a guy like Pete do in a place like this? You know what I'm saying? Like here's a place that has great middle linebackers. So you got to get your Bobby Wagner back with Eric Kendricks. You have Barr. You know, like you have players in certain positions that could get you to where you need to be. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know if that would work either because of Kirk. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the truth is like the relationship, that doesn't matter what your head coach is like. If they don't jive with your quarterback, it's never going to work. It's because those two guys are the most important figures. And if I see those two getting along great and they're super happy together and they're funny, I think everything's cool. And I'm like, well, I can just go about my life and do whatever I got to do. But if they're constantly at each other's throat, you're constantly like, dude, calm down, leave him alone, get off his back, right? Oh, he's the head coach. I know, dude. He's just the head coach. Leave him alone. Like, it's just going to be weird like that. And the head coach is yelling at you about the quarterback. You're like, hey, he's just a quarterback, man. I know. Quarterbacks are pussies. That's just how it goes. Get over it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just constantly trying to pick you instead of being like, well, they got it. Who needs help over there? This is great.
The problem, I think, is this. And he stumbled into the right combination of time. So he's not 0-4. But like the last 2 years are an example. And really since Kirk got here, Booney, Rick doesn't understand the chemistry of people. So I think a lot of times Rick builds a team that on paper looks great. Like Kirk. Kirk was the best. Kirk's a great signing as a quarterback. Like that's a great signing, but he couldn't find one. But he never took into account that it wouldn't have taken a long time to sit down with Zimmer and Cousins and be like, this isn't going to work.
Right. Like a dinner. I would have brought him to dinner.
But you could have told that.
Oh, easily, dude. You take him to dinner, get them both drunk, and just be like, hey, go talk for 5 minutes. See what happens. Like, are you two still talk football, or are you just like, poking at your dinner, like, is it time to go?
Yep.
Oh yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Or one
Like,
of them,
right.
or Mike drinks wine and Kirk's like, I'll just have some more Diet Coke or something.
Right, I'll have a
You know,
soda
it's just
water.
like,
Right, you just tell,
it's
and
not working.
that's why it used to be so much more fun in free agency when they would bring you out before and you'd like eat dinner with them and stuff. And like, I mean, I remember coming here and I had dinner with Tony, and it was Tony. It was different. I knew Tony, and me and Tony were close. So Tony was like, "Yo, my guy, you know, this is what we're gonna do." And I was like, "Oh, Tony, we're gonna have so much fun here." We were both wrong.
What restaurant?
We went to Manny's. We ate in the back room.
Oh, that
was
you were
amazing.
big time then.
Dude, we went.
You
in the
were
secret
big
room.
time because they took the small time guys out in Eden Prairie.
Oh,
And they took the big time guys downtown.
dude, it was so fun. It was, and that was, I mean, but that was like a lot of the chemistry, you know what I'm saying? And then you come in, and I knew Tony, and we were friends, and we could kind of work around each other a lot. And it was like, we got this. And then, man, when we got here, it was, I remember Tony was like, "Yo, my guy, it's not what we thought." I was like, "Oh, Tony, don't say that to me now." I'm like,
no, too late, Tony.
He's like, "It's okay, dude. I got you. I got you." I was like, "Oh, Tony."
Can I go back to Santa Clara? Can I go back with
No, I don't.
Harbaugh?
I don't want to go back with Trent Baalke. I can't believe that guy keeps a job. That's what's on my freaking mind right now, Judd. That Trent Baalke down in Jacksonville Jaguars gets to keep his job after signing Urban Meyer. What a I'm telling you. When is Shad Khan going to let me come be the GM? Dude, I would run through the South. I would run
Baalke's
through
from
the
here,
AFC
right?
South.
I
Baalke
think
is
he's
from
from-
Bemidji.
Bemidji, yeah.
I hate him. He's terrible.
He must be a bad guy, too.
He's horrible. I'm telling you. He doesn't understand football. He doesn't understand that nobody wants his knowledge, and nobody wants to hear about how you played at Bemidji, bro. Like, nobody, like, he would come down and start telling our DBs, like, you gotta bend more, kick. And I think one time he was talking to Carlos Rodgers when Carlos Rodgers was making $28 million. He was like, "Carlos, your back pedal is just," I was like, "What? Did you just say his back pedal sucks? He makes $30 million. They have completion rate is like 13%. I was like, "Go away." He was like, "Boone, you don't even know." I was like, who hired you? Let this guy around a team. Dude, they let those guys run teams, but they won't let me. You know?
Yeah, no, it's BS.
Hey, after they fire
I'm
Rick,
with you.
I'm calling the Wilfs myself.
You should. You should call him right now. Get on the short list.
No, it's screw LaFleur. I'm sick of seeing that guy all hair all looking like, "Oh yeah, here
Yeah,
we
there's
go.
gotta be
Got
a
the
short
North
list.
again." That dude doesn't deserve the North.
Just give me a job, Boone.
Judd, you'll be our media guy.
be
AJ will
your
be
media-
with us.
Give me a
Don't worry.
football ops job.
Hey, we figured it out. This is the flow. AJ, you and me. We
Yep.
got to get rid of Mackey and Declan. They're gone. I'm sorry,
I'll get Declan a couple extra PTO days to use.
my dude.
Couple extra. Yeah, you're gonna have to cut him.
We ain't
All
got that kind of cap.
All right, Rhino. I'll talk to you. We'll talk to you next week, buddy.
You're the best, man. I love you.
That was
AJ, such
awesome.
a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, nice meeting you, man.